Hey guys, John here from Bring the SEO. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. I've made the decision to share a training video from inside the SEO Accelerator program with you. What you're about to watch is a mock sales call done between two members, Abe and Ben. Now, when I say sales call, this isn't necessarily a sales call. This is the first stage in the sales process. If you've watched any of my other videos, I talk at length about always using a two-stage sale process. Stage one being pre-qualifying the lead to ensure they're a good fit. And stage two, if they are a good fit, stage two is about taking them through a sales presentation. Now, what they're going through, what Ben is actually doing is he's taking Abe, who's pretending in this case to be the client or the prospect rather. He's taking him through this, which is a telephone run sheet. The telephone run sheet is a resource that I provide inside the program along with all of the sales scripts, email templates, the slide decks, the checklist, the planners and everything else to help you work your way through the sales process. If you're struggling with sales or you feel like you're just kind of freestyling with prospects when you speak to them, when you're trying to pitch and sell your services, then you really should consider enrolling in the program. In fact, there's a link directly below this video where you can sign up. I think there's a coupon code there you can use to get 20% off your first month. All right, so before you start watching the video, just be mindful this is quite long and you might be thinking, wow, this is really complicated and I don't want to take a prospect through this because I don't want to be spending an hour with them on the phone. This video is only that long because I'm stopping it occasionally and sharing some thoughts and insights that help everyone in the community learn and do better. Right now, when you're taking a prospect through when you're taking a prospect through the telephone run sheet, it usually only takes about 10 to 15 minutes, right? So just bear that in mind. Like I said, this video is a bit longer, but I'm sure if you watch it all the way through, you'll find it tremendously valuable.
Thanks for joining me, Abe. So tell me a little bit about yourself, about your business. Where are you located?
All right, so we actually sell solar battery backup to other solar companies where they go ahead and install the solar. I'm located in Southampton, Pennsylvania, and I've been there for about 17 years.
Okay, fair enough. So you do more off-grid solar solutions. Okay.
And I work with solar companies to basically sell them, solar battery backup as an additional service to installation or people, like you said, off-grid.
Fair enough. So let me ask you this. Do you actually have an installation crew out in the field installing PV systems?
Okay, so just a couple of things real quick. Firstly, obviously this is a mock call, but at the very beginning of any engagement, there should always be a little bit of chit chat. The whole reason behind doing that, and when I say a little bit of chit chat, hey, how's it going? Something that isn't related to the sales in any way. And I mean, you really shouldn't be selling at this point anyway, but when I did these, when I pre-qualified, admittedly, I never did these over Zoom. I just did them over the phone. But my whole approach at the very beginning of the call was to make the prospect feel very comfortable. Hey, how's it going, Jason? As an example, hey, how's it going, Jason? Whereabouts are you based? Oh, Sydney. Yeah, it's been a little while since I went in there. Don't enjoy the traffic too much. Whereabouts are you based, John? Oh, I'm on the Central Coast, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Obviously, again, this is just a mock call, so that's probably why they skipped over it. Now, what Ben is doing here is incredibly important, and everyone in the group should be doing this. He's digging a little bit deeper, right? He's trying to get to the bottom of exactly who this client is and what they do. Something that Ben has learned within his niche is that even though he's targeting solar contractors, that terminology is very broad in the solar space. And of course, this will vary between industries. But Ben has found Ben's ideal client is someone who actually they're a business owner. They have a team out in the field. They're performing PV installations. They're not a subcontractor. and they're not a sales rep. So this is tremendously important. And it's a question that's worth asking, right? You want to make sure that you're speaking to the right person. Obviously, if you already have this information or it's obvious, then you shouldn't be asking that question. You want to avoid asking questions where the prospect is thinking, well, that should be pretty obvious. You just told me in your ad and the landing pages and everything that I went through that you're wanting to work with roofing contractors. Now you're asking me what I do. Okay, so be mindful of that. Let's continue on.
Yes, we have it. However, we have two different wings. We have a retail sector, and then we have a wholesale sector where the solar company will come here and buy our equipment and obviously install it for the customer.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I do definitely focus more on the installation crew side of things. I can definitely help with the sales aspect as well. I've got a couple of clients that do that, but it is definitely more focused on the lead generation side of things to book new jobs, right?
Okay, so that's great. What Ben has done there, he has clarified to the prospect exactly where his focus point is. Okay, and this is something that all of you might need to consider. You know, because even though you've niched down, you're going to have companies that do things. Perhaps they might do things slightly differently. You know, it can be easy to say we're going to work with family lawyers, but there might be family lawyers that, you know, operate in different ways, and they do certain types of family law, but not others. It's worth making sure that you're both on the same page. So what Ben has done there is really great. He said, this is, okay, we understand you do these other things, but this is what we do, and this is how we can help you book more jobs. You know, and if it's not a good fit, the prospect will let you know. Oh, okay, no, sorry, we were looking at, you know, just buying leads. Okay, well, that's not what we do. See you later. Let's continue on.
Fair enough.
Cool. Okay. So this isn't going to be a sales call or anything like that. Just looking to try and determine if we're a good fit, understand your business a bit better, and where you're up to in marketing, right? So are you interested?
So I just want to stop the video there real quick. I know that in the telephone run sheet, right, I do say frame the call. Okay, so just to let you know, this is not a sales call. I'm not going to try and sell you anything. I just want to try and get a better understanding of your business, where you're up to in terms of marketing, to see if you're a good fit. I didn't always say that. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't say it, but what I definitely always did say was the question just before it, right? If you have the run sheet in front of you, I always said this: Bob, would you have a few minutes? I'm just going to run through a few questions with you, if that's okay. Right? Always say that. Ben didn't say it at this point, so it doesn't necessarily look. It's not going to make too much of a difference, but it's something that I would encourage all of you say, right? Because you're going to be talking about the weather and sport and all sorts of nonsense at this point. So you need to take control of the conversation. And as it reads on the run sheet, okay, Bob, that's, you know, great. Listen, Bob, would you have a few minutes? I just want to run through a couple of quick questions with you. Would that be okay? Ask for their permission. You know, I always ask for their permission. They'd say, yeah, sure, that's fine. Right? It restructures and reframes the conversation so that they're ready to rock and roll in terms of answering your questions. Now, again, I didn't always say this is not a sales call. Okay, so what I would recommend there is, if you're going to just say one of those two, you say the first one. If you skip the second one, then that's okay. It's entirely up to you. You know, there's probably no harm in just saying, okay, just to let you know, this isn't going to be a sales call. I'm not going to try and sell you anything. I'm just asking these questions because I want to get a good fit. Now, the other thing that I'll say real quick, and this is something that I noticed Ben doing, is don't look, reading the script word for word can sometimes come across quite synthetic and awkward. So don't feel as though you have to read it absolutely word for word. You've got to make sure that the engagement, the interaction is conversational and relaxed. Now, to give you an example, instead of reading, okay, so just to let you know, this is not a sales call. I'm not going to try and sell you anything. I just want to try and You don't need to say it like that. You can just say, have you got a few minutes to answer a couple of questions, Bob? Okay, great. All right. Listen, I'm not going to try and sell you anything, but need to ask you a few questions just to make sure you're a good fit. Cool. So you can see how I'm still following this. I'm still following the framework, but I've just tried to make it a bit more relaxed and conversational. Now, you've got to be careful that you don't take it too far and get too relaxed and conversational and sort of go outside of the script. But I think you know what I mean. So let's continue on.
In starting SEO right now or in the future?
Well, we're looking at, we work with a lot of different marketing companies. Some has worked in the past, some not, but nothing consistent. What we are looking to do is, look for your suggestions or expertise to see which is the best option for us to go. If it's SEO, if it's something else, that's what we're looking to. What we're looking to do is generate leads and be consistent.
Yeah, perfect. Awesome.
Okay, so Ben missed something there, and this was pretty obvious to me. I'll just continue the video.
Okay. How long is
Right, so Ben missed it. Abe actually said there, we've worked with other marketing companies. Some of it's worked, some of it hasn't. Now, you've got to make a mental note of that. And again, I would have the run sheet in front of you, right? I'm old school, so I always had these things printed out hard copy in front of me and a pen in hand, right? Now, I would be making a note of that. Abe just said, we've worked with other marketing agencies and some of it's worked, some of it hasn't. Now, that could be a fucking problem. That could be a red flag, right? Okay, why hasn't it worked? Is it the marketing agencies that have been the problem, or is it the client? At the very least, you want to make a note of that. Okay, you don't need to stop the conversation here unless you think it's necessary. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by unless it's necessary. If the prospect says, oh, we've worked with 20 other agencies and they've all been shit. Okay, that's where I would stop and say, okay, what does that actually mean? Can you give me an example? What went wrong? Okay, because chances are that there might be a problem with the prospect, right? So Ben didn't pick up on that. Really important. You've got to really listen, not only to what they say, but their tone and any sort of messaging that might be sort of you got to sort of read between the lines. Okay, so for that one there, and don't be afraid. And something else that I'll mention real quick is don't be afraid, right? If they're answering questions that are out of sequence. So, and you'll know this as you do more of these calls, right? So, I'm just trying to find out where that question might be. Okay, so on the second page, you'll see existing previous marketing efforts, right? Now, you got to be careful that you don't bounce around all over the place, but if the prospect says, oh, we've worked with 5 other agencies and none of it worked, well, then it might be worth your while skipping to page 2 real quick, off camera, not stopping the conversation, but and just making a quick note of it on your run sheet, okay? Worked with other agencies, right, with a bit of a star or something beside it, so you can make a note of it and then revisit that as you work your way through the run sheet. All right, let's continue on.
Has the business been in operation?
Like I said before, about 17 years.
17 years, cool, awesome. And how many staff do you currently employ?
We have we just hired a couple of guys, so we have about 17 to 18 people here.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Could you give me a brief overview of your sales process? So take me through what happens when a brand new lead contacts you all the way through to becomes a paying customer.
All right. So the way it works is, they recently had a solar installation, or let's say that solar installation company basically told them, hey, you need to have a battery backup for this solar. They have an existing solar. Now they're looking at us to get a battery backup to the existing solar solutions in case it goes, and they necessarily don't have a generator or anything like that to back it up. So what they do is they call us up and they say, hey, look, I have a solar system and this is my problem. I need something that will back it up, but I don't want to spend money on another backup system to back up this solar. And then as soon as the grid goes down, I'm down. when that inquiry comes in, it goes to a sales team. The sales staff will ask them a few questions, just like you were asking now. What are the needs are, how big the solar service, how big the house is, the square footage, stuff like that. And then at that point, they will do a consulting process where they will ask them particular power needs and equipment that they have or whatever they use in the house, how much power they're using. And then based on that, we'll recommend a backup battery solution for them. Part of that process will be to ask them about their budget and so on and so forth. We do offer financing, things like that.
Okay, perfect. Do you currently track where your customers are?
Okay, so that was a very long-winded answer, and I'm not quite sure Abe answered. He kind of lost me there, but I think what matters most here is that there's some structure around their sales process. I probably have to re-listen to Abe's answer. It was very long-winded, and but all you're looking for there is, okay, well, they've got a dedicated sales team, which Abe said, which is fantastic, right? Now, I probably would have just clarified what Abe said and said something like, okay, so a call comes in, that goes through a dedicated sales team. They note the job, someone goes out to quote, you provide a quote, and then they give you the go-ahead via phone or email or something, and then you go out and perform the job, and then payment is made. Is that right? So you can see what I'm doing there. I'm just trying to clarify and shorten that answer in its most basic form. And then I would probably ask, okay, well, how long is that sales cycle how long does that sales cycle usually take? And I think that's an important question to ask, because I have worked with clients in the past where they've got a really long sales cycle, and that makes reporting and being able to demonstrate ROI a little bit tricky, because the work that you do in, say, month 2, you may not see the returns until month 6 or 7. And this is where I'm not a fan of working in industries where there's really long sales cycles. But what I would recommend, if the client does give you a bit of a confusing or long-winded answer like that, is just to revise it, go over it, shorten it, and just repeat it back to the prospect. Okay, so call comes in, goes to the sales team, someone gets sent out quotes for the job, they get the green light, they go out, they perform the work, payments is made before or after. How long does that process take? Something like that. So just so that you can get it really clear in your head, because if you don't, then you start working together and you find out that, the sales team in this example is just some, young girl that answers the phone, and they've got horrible close rates and everything else, and stuff's being kept on an Excel spreadsheet. That could cause problems later.
They're coming from?
Our customers come from Google. Some come from associations. Some come from, that's a very tricky thing, is that it's very hard for us to keep track where we come from, just because, they may be coming from a customer referral, a customer referral, a solar installation referral. They may be coming directly from Google by searching. We have attempted to track it, but we don't have anything solid like that.
Okay. Do you currently use any CRM or anything?
Okay, so one thing that does concern me here is Ben, and maybe this is not how he operates when he does live pre-qualification calls, but there doesn't seem to be too much in terms of follow-up or questioning at each level. And for that particular question, you'll probably find in most cases, unless you're working with sophisticated businesses, they just won't know where the leads are coming from. But what you're essentially looking for there, a great answer there from a prospect is, yes, we track everything and we know exactly what's going on. But again, most businesses don't. But be sure to dig a bit further if necessary, okay? Just remember, you want to move through the run sheet in about 10 to 15 minutes max. You don't want to make it painful for the prospect. So you've got to be mindful. You've got to ask the questions, but you've got to keep the momentum going as well.
Yes, we use Zoho CRM.
Okay, perfect. What's an average sale worth for the business, average on the low end?
Low end is about $3,000. High end is about 15,000.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so that question there could probably be, I would usually always expand on that. You know, I'd say this conversation is going the way it is because they're both familiar with, you know, the reasons why the question is being asked. But when you're asking a prospect, what's an average sale worth? I would usually always back that up with something that they can relate to. Okay, what's an average job or sale or lead worth? What's an average lead or sale worth to you? And they'll say, what do you mean? Oh, well, you know, you go out in a job. And sometimes you have to help guide them, right? You go out into the job, you do an installation. What's something on the low end? What's some of the small stuff that you do, right? One thing, and this is something that I've mentioned a couple of times now, for whatever reason, not always, but certainly sometimes, prospects will inflate the numbers, whether it's an ego thing, I don't know. But sometimes they'll inflate the numbers. Now you'll see, and I'll give you an example. You'll see the answer that Abe just gave there between, I think he said $3,000 and $15,000. You need to ask the question. Okay, so how often are you doing these $3,000 jobs? Does that make up, you know, 90% of the jobs that you do or the work that you do? Or is it the big stuff, right? In other words, are you doing, you know, $3,000 jobs 90% of the time, and the $15,000 jobs 10% of the time? Or is it a reversal? Or is it the opposite of that, right? You're doing the big stuff 15,000 90% of the time, and the $3,000 jobs 10% of the time. It's a question worth asking because I've worked with clients in the past where they've said we don't touch anything less than $5,000, and then we started working together, and they've got an end of month strategy call to go through the reporting, and they've said, oh no, this month we're just doing, you know, $500 jobs. So I'm like, well, what happened? And it's because when asked this question during the call, again, maybe it's an ego thing. I don't know. Maybe it's pride. They've given me the highest number possible. So always be sure to clarify that without causing confusion to the prospect. Okay. So if they give you a range like that, you know, if they say, hey, every single job is 10 grand, that's easy. But always probe, right? You've got to probe there and get to the bottom of it. Okay, so is there anything that you do on that's low? Like, give me something. What I used to always say was, give me something on the low end that makes up the majority of what you do. Okay, because again, you've got to be, you've got to know what the worst case scenario is before you get started.
What's the current monthly revenue of the business?
Monthly revenue for us, I'm not. Here's my thing, okay? You know, that monthly revenue ranges by different products. But why are you asking me that question? I'm just curious to know.
Yeah, for sure. So basically just looking to see where you're at, to see where you exactly want to scale your business to in terms of revenue. So it just helps me understand where you're at in the business life cycle.
Okay, I got you. Okay.
All right, so I'm going to stop the video here. This is one thing that really stood out, and it's something that could definitely be done better, right? And I've been faced with this question numerous times. Why are you asking me about revenue? Now, if the prospect has been speaking with other agencies, in which case they always will be, right? You won't be the only SEO agency that they'll be speaking with if they're in this position. Other SEO agencies won't be asking that question. They won't give a shit. They'll just be saying, oh, what keywords do you want to rank for? And how much traffic are you currently getting? So it could be seen as an unusual question, right? What's the monthly revenue? So that's the first thing. The other thing that I found, and I have to say, this happened very, very rarely. Out of hundreds of sales calls, or even pre-qualifying calls, rather, maybe one or two times I got asked the question, "Why are you asking me about revenue?" And those are probably, you know, the same percentage of people that was refused to share the numbers with me. Now, of course, if anyone doesn't want to share the numbers, and obviously you need to help them understand why you're asking, I'll get to that in just a minute and provide a better example of how you can respond to that. If they're refusing to share the numbers, that's where the conversation needs to end. Of course, you don't want to be rude and say, well, can't help you. You need to explain why. Right now, as I was watching through this video just a moment ago, I did scribble something down real quick, and this is straight off the top of my head. It could certainly be improved, but I would say something like this, right? And this is pretty close to what I would have said in that situation. I would have said something like this: we're not like other SEO agencies who just want to track vanity metrics. Perhaps you've had that discussion before where they're talking about getting more visibility, rankings, keywords, and so on. Oh, yeah, you're right. None of that really matters, Bob, right? We're focused on, helping you get customers and close jobs, right? So in order for us to be able to do that, you can see I'm summarizing here. In order for us to be able to do that, we need to know the numbers. We also need to ensure, and this is the reason why we're here asking these questions, that you're a good fit for us, because we only want to work with we're selective about who we work with. We only want to work with established businesses, as opposed to, people that are running broken businesses who are in startup mode and they've got no marketing budget. Does that help you understand, Bob, why I'm asking the question? Okay, yes, it does, John. Brilliant. The main reason, okay, is, there's a couple of points. There's a couple of things I pointed out there. Firstly, is that you want to tell them, hey, we're not like other SEO agencies. We need to know the numbers. We need to know the numbers. If we don't know the numbers, then we can't help you. We can't help you grow your business, right? It doesn't make sense for us to just focus on vanity metrics. That doesn't mean anything. Okay, so I would respond with that. I don't really like the answer that Ben gave. I certainly think it could be improved upon. Okay, that's definitely a question you want to be ready for. It's one that I didn't get it a lot, but if you don't answer it well, I think it could be really detrimental to the outcome, because you got to think about what prospects might be thinking. Okay, well, is he just poking around? He wants to know the numbers so he can charge me more. That's not the reason. Okay, let's continue on.
So if I look through it, we do somewhere around 20 to 25 million a year.
Perfect. Cool.
Right. So again, Ben didn't really respond to that. He didn't give any sort of. He didn't probe further. I would definitely poke a bit further there, right? So, and I think I've done that here, right? So I've put down to the timeline here. I did intend on mapping this out, but I'll do it via video because I think it's more useful. So Abe actually responded there with, we're doing around $25 million a year. So before moving on, I would be scribbling that down on the run sheet and just going over that with the prospect. Okay, so $25 million a year. Right, so that means you're doing just over 2 million per month. Does that sound right, Bob? Yeah, that sounds about right. Now, is that net or gross? Okay, so that's gross. So what do you think you're at? You're at, say, 50% margins or 40%? Okay, so you're doing about, let's say, 1.2 a month. Does that sound about right? Okay, great. So you're doing about 1.2 a month. Now, the way in which the question is asked in the run sheet, there's a couple of things here. The way in which the question is asked in the run sheet, it could be improved upon. Instead of asking what the current monthly revenue is, maybe think about what the client is doing annually, right? Because most business owners will know what their annual revenue is. However, they don't always know what the monthly revenue is. And that's probably because some months they might be doing 2 million and the next month they might be doing 600,000. So it probably doesn't make any sense to track at that level. So probably a better way of asking the question is, what are you guys doing per annum? Now, you may be able to actually get this information if you ask that question in your questionnaire within Calendly. But ask the question, and look, this is really important. Ask the question and then calculate what that equates to in terms of monthly. Right now, I'll just read my notes here. Get the monthly figure, because you might need this later in order to calculate the numbers, right? Lead value, number of closed jobs or sales or whatever that, does it equal what they're telling you in terms of monthly income? In other words, if they say, oh, we're doing, $25 million a year, okay, what's that net? Okay, about 1.2. All right. Now we know what they're doing per month. Let's make it easy, 1 million. And we know that they've told us that their average lead or sale or transaction is, say, $3,000. Then, okay, there's some maths to be done here, right? That then means that, okay, we wouldn't do this on screen with them unless it's warranted. This is not something, I wouldn't stop the conversation and start bashing away the calculator, but I would definitely be making a mental note of it. Right, so 1 million divided by 3,000. That means they're doing over 300 jobs a month, which is a huge number. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Again, whether it's pride or ego, I don't know, but sometimes business owners will say, "Oh, we're doing $1 million a month," and when you do the maths behind it, it doesn't stack up. Right. And especially when you start asking about their sales process, okay, you may even want to ask the question, like, what are the close rates? Do you know, Bob? We're probably closing 1 in every 3 jobs. Okay, so 33%. Those numbers can be useful because it can help you see through any bullshit, right? Again, clients will sometimes, or prospects rather, will sometimes overinflate the numbers. Now, you've got to be careful that you don't turn into fucking Einstein at the other end and you're bashing away at a calculator. But over time, given that you've niched down and you're working in the same industry, you should be able to tell, okay, all right, these numbers look pretty healthy. Or wait a minute, something doesn't stack up here. Okay. Now, before we continue on, I will say this. Just be careful in the way in which you probe here, right? You don't want to be offensive or in any way or considered rude. You want to just say, all right, Bob, so just looking at these numbers here, like you're telling me 1.2, each job is worth 3,000. That's an awful lot of jobs. If you're closing 1 in 3, that means you must be getting about 9,000 leads a month and doing over 300 jobs. Just that maybe I've missed something. Could we just go back and have another look at that? You don't always have to have this conversation, but if the numbers don't look right, then clarify. Okay.
What is your website address?
My website address is www.fortresspower.com.
Okay, you really should be getting the web address when they book the call. If the phone rings, you'll need to ask that question. But try and get that in the booking, the Calendly booking.
Perfect. Do you have any other websites or domains?
We do. We have some website that marketing company have created, our staff has created, customer portal, stuff like that. So we do have it. Yes.
Okay, fair enough. So are they all located on WordPress? What's the content management system that they're using?
Our main site is WordPress, but I don't know about the other ones. That's all. Sometimes our engineers, they do something like that. They put it up, stuff like that.
Okay, fair enough. Have you ever had any major marketing issues?
Right. So Ben has missed something else here. And again, I'm hopeful that he's not making these same mistakes doing sales calls. And this is not an attack on Ben in any way, right? I think all of you should be doing these practice calls. This is the whole point of doing them. It's a way of exposing or being able to identify and diagnose weaknesses in your processes. So Ben asks a question there: do you have any other websites or domains? And Abe said, yes, we do. Right. The conversation should have stopped right there. Okay, how many other sites do you have? What other domains do you have? Can you show me some of those domains? You've got to be careful that you don't get bogged down browsing the internet for 20 minutes. But you should be at least asking the question, okay, why do these sites exist? What's the point of these sites? And is any of the informational content on these sites the same as your main website? What you're doing, you're asking the question because you don't want to start working with a client who's got, plumbers are notorious for this. They build out their primary website, which might be Acme Plumbing, and then they'll go and register location-specific exact match domains all over the place. And then, I found myself in a situation years ago where I was working with a plumber and the damn thing wouldn't move in Google. And then I found 70, after, a bit of digging around, this prospect had 70 other websites, all with the same content on them. So if the prospect says to you, yeah, we've got 12 other sites, right? Then you've got to figure out why. Why do you have these other sites? Can you show them to me? Okay, this could be a huge red flag. Okay, and it could be, okay, well, we can't work together. This is an absolute mess. Or, you're going to have to figure something out here because this is going to cause problems, right? You've got to ask the question. And even if they say no, right? Sometimes I found prospects will say, no, we don't have the other websites. So you don't have any other domains registered or other sites that, you may have put up on Weebly or something like that. Sometimes you need to dig a little bit more. But Ben didn't there, and that is definitely a bit of a red flag that should have been paused upon and a bit more information gathered.
Or SEO issues?
Yeah, we've had issues in the past where, that was in the past there, and where we hired a SEO company and they did some things where it created some problems, but that is long behind us from what I know. And now we don't have that kind of a problem.
Okay, fair enough. If you don't mind me asking, what kind of problems did you encounter with this SEO agency?
I think about 7 to 8 years ago, they had some, links or something like that. At least that's what they said. That impacted our site, things like that. I mean, after that, we went through a few process. I think they call it cleanup, and it was cleaned up. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Oh, good. Is that
Okay, so this right here should be a real concern. Definitely ask if they say, yeah, we had some problems. You definitely need to know how long ago. Abe actually answered that question without Ben asking it, which is good. He said 7 or 8 years ago. So it's not recent, but that is something that should be noted with a big fucking mark on the run sheet, because that's something that you need to look into when you perform the low-level audit. Okay, look, if a prospect said to me, if everything checks out and the prospect said, yeah, we work with some shitty agency and we lost all our rankings, but we managed to get them back, I wouldn't write them off. That's a situation where you need to jump into SEMrush and Ahrefs and do some investigative work, right? Figure out, like, how bad is this? Has this thing recovered? Is the site actually indexed in Google? You want to make sure that you're not starting from, negative 500, because that can cause all sorts of problems. So, you've definitely got to dig a bit further on that one. If they give you an answer like that, most business owners won't know, even if they have been penalized. So you should be performing that work anyway, which you do as part of the low-level audit.
anyone else currently working on your main website? I know you said there's several other websites. Is anyone working on your main website right now?
So one thing there that I would ask of the client is to provide a list of the other domains. And I would probably do that at the end of the call. Don't have them send you stuff via chat or bloody email while you're trying to go through the quali call. But you definitely need to get some sort of idea of, what these other sites are. All right, let's continue on.
No.
Yeah, the developer that built it, the designers, those guys, that's an agency. They work on that. They work on those, maintaining and updating it. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Who are your top 3?
Right. So again, Ben didn't follow up with he didn't ask a follow-up question, which is and should be, okay, these other people that are working on the site, they're not going to get in our way in order for us to do our job? No? Okay, brilliant. All right, because this is tremendously important. And just provide an example, right? You've got to be firm here and say, this developer is not going to get in our way in order for us to do our job. No. I would always back that up with, just to soften it a little bit, because they might be thinking, who the fuck is this guy? We've been working with our developer for 20 years and he's great. And you're telling me we got to, boot this guy out? That's not what I'm saying. So I would always back it up with this. Listen, I'm only asking a question because we've worked with other clients in the past where we've been fighting with web designers, graphic designers, programmers, and we'll perform, we'll do a whole month's worth of work, and then we'll log in to realize that the site has been backed up from a copy that's 6 months old because a developer broke something. We just want to avoid those situations because that's going to slow us down. Okay, so give them a reason why you're asking that question. But Ben didn't ask the question there. Again, I don't know if he's just breezing through these questions in this for the sake of the mock call. But you definitely need to stop there and say, okay, what sort of access do these guys have? Are they going to be working on the site while we're working on it? Look, if you can say this, look, ideally, we just need unobstructed access to the website. Right. Now, don't forget, you really should be using pre-built templates. So the last thing you want is to be installing a pre-built template, and then have, some graphic designer start pulling it apart and, making a mess of it. So you might want to be mindful of that as well. As to whether or not you mention it at this point, don't know. But for me personally, if they said, "Oh, we've got our own IT support company and developers and programmers and everything else," that was almost an instant deal breaker, because I've been in that situation so many times where you log in, you're like, "What the fuck happened to the call to action on the homepage? It's gone." Oh yeah, we spoke with Greg and he doesn't like it. He just, he's put it back to the way it was. Oh, well, brilliant. Why am I here? So definitely be something to be mindful of.
3 competitors in your industry, in your area.
We have a few, off top of mind. Let me just check on my website. I'll tell you that right now who they are. Bear with me 1 second. I'm just looking at it.
Yep.
Okay, most business owners will know who their competitors are. They'll be able to tell you.
I have this listed with me, but
they won't need to look it up. They'll just tell you.
All right, you have a company called Venture Solar, Sunova, and SunPower.
Perfect. Sounds good.
Right. So you should definitely be getting the web addresses there at some point, right? So who are your 3 to 5 main competitors? So you don't need to get a massive list here, but you do need to get their web address, because you can't do the gap analysis or competitor analysis within your sales presentation. So as they're answering the question, you say, okay, so Genovis, what is that? How's that spelled? Genovis.com. Yeah. I would usually only get 3. Look, if you get 3 to 5, that's enough. Okay. You just need that info so you can put the sales presentation together.
Are you currently spending any other revenue on any other form of marketing? You mentioned Google before. Was that Google Ads?
Yeah, we do Google Ads. The same agency that does a website, they do Google Ads and things like that. I don't know much about that. I know that roughly we spend anywhere between $3,000 to $4,000 or so on Google Ads.
Okay, perfect.
Right. So again, he's telling Ben that there's another agency working here. So that needs to be clarified. Where are they driving that ad traffic to? Is it going to the website? You can't implement a template if you're going to break all of that work that's being done by another agency. This is where you need to make the decision. Are we going to get involved in this fucking mess, or are we just going to be able to get in and do our job without fighting with other agencies and graphic designers and web developers and everything else? SEO is hard enough without fighting with other people. So be mindful of that. And the other thing that wasn't picked up there, or at least Ben didn't ask the question, is $3,000 to $4,000. What is that, a day? Is that a month? Is that a year? Definitely need to ask the question, because it will give you some idea of their current marketing spend. And if they answer the question and say something like, oh yeah, we're running Google ads, but we're spending probably $50 a day, and my wife does it. That's a problem. However, if they say, yeah, we're 50,000 a month, that should be a good sign. All you're looking for there is they've demonstrated that they're actually actively involved in some form of marketing.
Okay, so you said you're at about $3 million a year, correct?
No.
Oh, a month.
No. That's and it's about 2 million, 1.5, $2 million. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. So given that, so you're currently at $1.52 million a month, where, say in 12 months time.
Okay, so maybe Ben wasn't listening here, but the prospect has repeated that 3 times now. Between 1.5 and 2 million. He's actually come down. He said 2.5 before. That's 2.5 a year. And Ben has just said 1.5 to $2 million a month. Again, it's just a mock call, so maybe he just wasn't listening. But one thing that I do know is that prospects get real shitty if you're not listening. So use the run sheet. Take notes. If you're asking silly questions or repeatedly asking the same question, they're going to be thinking, this guy's not even fucking listening to me. Why am I here? Okay, really important.
Where do you see your business growing to? What are your objectives for lead generation and building the business?
Well, our current objective is to increase that number by about 30%.
30%. Okay.
Right, 30%. That's what we are looking to do. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that sounds very, very feasible. Awesome. So,
all right. So Ben didn't ask, well, 30% what? By next Saturday afternoon? Within 6 months? Within, 10 years? Look, sometimes prospects won't know. Sometimes prospects won't know, right? If you say, "Oh, obviously you're investing in marketing. Have you got some?" I mean, I used to just summarize it and say, "Okay, so you're obviously invested in. You want to do some form of marketing. You want to grow your business. What's an ideal outcome, right? Like, where have you got like a long-term plan, like 5 or 7 years? Where do you see the business? You're doing $2 million at the moment. Where do you see the business in 5 years?" And let them answer it. Sometimes they'll know, sometimes they won't know. And in most cases, at least what I experience, is they'll just give you some sort of fucking fanciful number off the top of their head. Oh, we want to go from 2 million to 100 million. In which case you've just got to, okay, that sounds great. But yeah, okay. Let's continue on.
So that's all the questions I have for now. I'll give you a brief overview of our.
I did notice, I think Ben may have missed a question there. What are you hoping to achieve with this investment? What are the campaign objectives? I think Ben missed a question there. I don't know, but yeah. Again, that I think it's worth asking, because you want to have some understanding of, if they're going to do this, what's an ideal outcome? And maybe that's the way in which you could word it. Okay. What are you hoping to achieve? If we do work together, what are you hoping to achieve with this investment? What are the campaign objectives? What's an ideal outcome? Okay. And that will help you understand, okay, their objectives or their level of their expectations are realistic, and we think we can meet them. Okay, if they say, oh, we want to do fucking $5 million by next Saturday afternoon, then okay, well then maybe we need to revisit the numbers and sort of help bring them down a bit. Or it might be the opposite. They might be thinking too small. Oh, we just want to get like another 1 or 2 leads a week. Okay, well, I'm sure we'll be able to achieve that, but chances are we'll do a lot better than that. Okay. Now, one question that actually just reminded me of something, and this is definitely a question that you want to add to the run sheet. I haven't updated it yet. You definitely want to ask the question, right? And it should go in maybe under ask about their business on the first page. Do you have the capacity and resources in place in order to X? Now, X can mean get more customers, sell more products, whatever that might be. You want to make sure they've got the capacity and the resources in order to support and accommodate additional leads or sales, whatever that might be. Because I've worked with companies in the past, or worked with clients rather, and in some cases they've said, I've had one. I was speaking with a coaching client recently. He said, I said the client paused the campaign because they couldn't get the product over. The product was being shipped over from Italy. They were sold out like 3-4 months in advance, and they said, "Oh, we want to pause the campaign because we just can't keep up with the orders." So you got to find out and ask the question. You don't want to have those sort of constraints or bottlenecks if you're doing an exception. There's nothing worse than losing a client because you've done a fucking brilliant job. So ask the question.
Pricing and structure and how we work. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
Sounds great. So we work at an hourly rate of $165 an hour for a minimum of 15 hours per month, or roughly $2,500 per month. We don't use any locking contracts. You pay.
Okay, so I might just go back just a little here because I may have missed it. I just want to make sure I captured this.
So that's all the questions I have for now. I'll give you a brief overview of our pricing and structure and how we work. How does that sound?
Right. So Ben is actually asking for permission here, which isn't necessary. I never did it. All I would say at this point is, okay, that's all the questions I have for now, George. I'm just going to run through a brief overview of our pricing structure and how we work. I'm almost certain I never used to ask for permission, right? Perhaps I did. I don't know. Could be wrong, but maybe I am wrong. Let's continue on.
Sounds good.
Sounds great. So we work at an hourly rate of $165 an hour for a minimum of 15 hours per month, or roughly $2,500 per month.
Don't say roughly. Okay, you can't say roughly. You've got to say exactly what you charge. You can't say, "Oh, we charge roughly $3,000 a month," because you're thinking, "Well, what does that mean? Is it 3,500? Is it $2,000?" So read it as you've got it on your run sheet. We work at an hourly rate of $165 an hour, and say it with commitment. We work at an hourly rate of $165 an hour for a minimum of 15 hours per month, or $2,500 per month. We don't use lock-in contracts. You simply pay as you go month to month, blah, 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 blah. Don't say roughly, and maybe give it a bit more oomph when you say it. Certainly say it with more confidence.
We don't use any lock-in contracts. You pay as you go. You can cancel out at any time. We just ask for a 30-day notice just to close everything on our end. At the end of each month, we provide you an itemized worksheet of what was done, what's upcoming, just so you know where your money's being spent for the campaign, right?
Now, I'll just say something real quick here, and this is probably the only time I ever read the run sheet word for word, exactly as I have it printed. And this maybe goes against what I said just a minute ago about the interaction being conversational and relaxed. But for this section here, under pre-qualified lead, I would just read it word for word, and I would move quickly, right? So I noticed Ben there for point 4, he said, we provide you with a worksheet. He didn't say work summary sheet. And there may have been some differences there, but for this section here, I would recommend that you read it word for word. Okay, we don't use lock-in contracts. You simply pay as you go, month to month. You can cancel out or pause your campaign at any time. However, we do ask for at least 30 days notice. It doesn't matter if you add on to that like Ben did. He said, let's just say that we can tie things off at our end, which is fine. But for the other stuff, I would definitely read it word for word.
And finally, we provide meaningful reporting on revenue. So that means book jobs, new customers, revenue for your business, right? If everything I've covered is
Okay, so this doesn't feel strong to me. So I don't know, Ben. Maybe if you're watching this, this definitely needs some improvement. Um, I'm going to give you an example of exactly how I would say this, right? And I'm going to stop at the top. I'm going to start at the top. Okay, Bob, that's all the questions I have for now. I'm just going to give you a brief run through, an overview of our pricing and structure and how we work. Is that cool? Okay, great. Now we work at an hourly rate of $165 an hour for a minimum of 15 hours per month or $2,500 a month. We don't use lock-in contracts. You simply pay as you go month to month. You can cancel out or pause your campaign at any time. However, we do ask for at least 30 days notice. At the end of each month, we provide you with an itemized work summary sheet that lists all of the work that's been performed for that month, along with work that's scheduled for the following month. At the end of each month, we host what we call end of month strategy calls with you, where we explain the work that's been done, along with making recommendations and answering any questions you may have. And lastly, in terms of reporting, we provide meaningful reporting that shows you exactly how your campaign is performing overall, with an emphasis on revenue. That's sales and leads. Now, if everything that I've just covered is of interest, the next steps are scheduling a time with you to go through a short presentation. The purpose of the presentation is to simply help you understand how our process works, blah, 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 right? So I'm pretty much reading it word for word, and I'm moving through it quickly, and I'm saying it with absolute confidence. Uh, Maybe it's a tonality thing. I don't know, but hopefully you can understand the difference there. Let's continue on.
interest, the next steps are to schedule a time to go through a short presentation. And the purpose of that presentation is to simply help you understand how our process works at a much deeper level. I'm also going to provide an SEO strategy and marketing plan specifically for you, give you an estimate on timeframes, and as well as go over your website with a low-level audit. How does that sound?
Right. So, okay, it wasn't terrible, but it definitely needs to be better. For all of you that are watching this video, you've got to, this page is like this, what is this, page 3? You've got to practice this over and over and over and over again so that you know what you're saying and why you're saying it, and you can almost fucking say it off the top of your head without actually looking at the run sheet. Okay? So again, it's not terrible, and this is not an attack on Ben. I'm sure there are others in the group who, I don't know, who are maybe doing better and others who are doing worse. But again, you've got to practice this and you've got to go through it. And it needs to be, look, I'll say this, prospects can smell bullshit a mile away. And if there's any fucking uncertainty or lack of confidence or doubt, you're fucked, because they'll pick up on that, right? So the way in which you speak, your tonality, and the delivery of the message is crucial. Look, I would always get on and do these pre-qualification calls, knowing that, and look, I understand that I've got a lot more experience than everyone, but I was simply like, I've got nothing to lose here. I know I can help this person, and it's going to be a tremendous mistake at their end if they choose to go somewhere else, because I know what it's like out there. So I always got on and did these pre-qualification calls with the approach, and I think I shared this in one of my posts recently. Visualize yourself sitting with a family member, and not sitting opposite them, but sitting beside them, right? You're both on the same team, right? Now, if you think about the way in which you'd speak with a family member, it would be completely different. So I would always think about myself, and this might sound unusual, but I would always think about the way in which I engaged with someone if I was sitting at a cafe and we were just having a conversation and I was just giving it to them straight without any sales tactics or bullshit, right? This is what I do. This is how it can work. we can definitely help you. What do you think? Right. I think if you're picturing yourself in that way where it's, let's sit together, I'm on your side, and you're not sitting opposite each other and it's a fucking hard sell. At least that was a method that worked for me. Okay, I'm on your side. I'm going to take care of you, and I'm going to protect you from all of that bullshit that's out there that exists in the SEO industry. Right. That's the way I approached it.
Sounds okay, but I have a few questions.
Sure.
You provide a list of like what is being done on a monthly basis, so I know exactly what I'm getting.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So every month I'll send you through an itemized list of absolutely everything was done in detail, just so you know exactly what's been happening, what's been going on in your website.
Right.
Okay, so I'm just going to back this up a little bit because Abe is asking questions, and I want to make sure that
presentation is to simply help you understand how our process works at a much deeper level. I'm also going to provide an SEO strategy and marketing plan specifically for you, give you an estimate on timeframes, and as well as go over your website with a low-level audit. How does that sound?
Sounds okay, but I have a few questions.
Sure.
Okay, so what Ben did there, right? If you go to what page? At the very bottom of page, I think it's page 3. You read out those final points, and then at the top of page 4, it reads, "How does that sound? Would you like to go ahead with the presentation?" You're asking them, "How does that sound?" Right? So you should be rounding it out and saying, "Now, if everything that I've just covered is of interest." Right. The next steps are scheduling time for you to go through a short presentation. The whole purpose of the presentation is simply help you understand how our process works, what we'll be doing, how we interact, and what you can expect overall. A proposed SEO strategy and marketing plan for your website, an estimate on timeframes, as well as go over a low-level audit on your site to see where it needs work and why it's not performing in search. Now you can see, I just read it word for word. Now you follow that up immediately with, how does that sound? Would you like to go ahead with the presentation? Now, I'm going to stop. I'll just restart the video for a second because I'm interested in seeing what happens here. But you'll see that Ben did not ask the question. He said, how does that sound? And he stopped. So that leaves the conversation wide open for questions, and that's exactly what happened. Let's see how he responds.
You provide a list of like what is being done on a monthly basis, so I know exactly what I'm getting.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So every month I'll send you through an itemized list of absolutely everything was done in detail, just so you know exactly what's been happening, what's been going on in your website.
Right. Are you ranking me? I know you didn't mention anything about, particular kind of keywords. I want to get ranked for solar battery power. I want to get ranked in Google page 1. I want to rank for number 1. But you didn't say anything about keywords, ranking, things like that. Can you tell me the kind of keywords you can get me ranked for?
Yeah, so definitely like off-grid solar. It's going to vary a little bit depending on your specific location. And
Okay, so this is a huge problem, and I truly hope that Ben fixes this. But you can see right now, right? And I go through this in great detail in the training. What's happened right now is it's on the this is on the last page of the run sheet. This is on the last page of the run sheet, and it reads at the top, how does that sound? Would you like to go ahead with the presentation? Now, there's 2 options here, right? The first one is no, and the second one is yes. Now, I'll read it to you. It says no. If they start asking questions, tell them that it will be clarified in the presentation. Do not try to explain your processes at this point. Push for the presentation. What Ben is doing here is he's digging himself into a fucking hole that is going to end with him trying to explain his processes, explain how he's going to rank them. This is a fucking nightmare. So Ben, you've got to fix this, dude. You can't be trying to explain your processes, how you work, how you're different, or anything else. This definitely should not be happening. Right. So if they do start asking questions, you say, okay, so I can understand why you're asking me this question, but Abe, this is why I'm asking you. I can understand why you're asking that question, but that's the whole point of the presentation, Abe, right? That's the whole point of the presentation. In the presentation, I'm going to answer all of those questions for you, as well as cover expectations, timeframes, cost, delivery of services, the work summary sheets, and everything, right? So rather than us getting bogged down right now in questions, let's schedule a time for the presentation. I'll walk you through the whole thing. Oh, right. Okay, great. That's what you want to do. You do not want to get yourself into a situation like Ben's in now, where he's trying to explain his service offering.
And keywords are definitely like very important SEO, obviously. You need to be ranking high in order to actually get the traffic, to get the leads. We focus on revenue though. So while most SEO agencies are
So none of this makes sense. This is the whole point of the presentation, the sales presentation, okay? And again, this is not an attack on Ben. This is, look, there are no losers here. There are only winners. We win through learning, okay? And it's the only way that you're going to get better. And this goes not only for Ben, but everyone else, right? I take my hat off to Ben for putting his neck on the line and actually doing this. I respect him a lot for that. But what's happening now is a fucking disaster, right? He's trying to answer the question and potentially overcome and sell the prospect. He's actually trying to convince them, like, we're not like it. This is a major problem. Hopefully he gets himself out of this hole. Let's see what happens.
talking about, rankings and keywords and all that. We focus on what matters to you, which is customers, book jobs, sales. That's what it comes down to, right?
All right. So if you're talking about revenue for the business, I know, you said you work with solar. What's your typical client results? What has your client achieved in the past? Do you have any kind of proof, any kind of things that I would like to see that? Because I want to see, because look, I met with a lot of marketing companies and they tell you all kind of stuff, but it never materializes. So you have any proof like that?
We do, and that is all covered in the presentation. I can tell you just off the top of my head, my clients typically see a 20 to 22 ROI, 20 to 22x ROI on their investment with me.
Okay, so thank God Ben actually got there and said it's going to be covered in the presentation. But that stuff that came before that is a huge problem. And it has to, you can't be having that conversation. You've got to get straight to the point and say, they start asking questions. Okay, I can understand why you're asking these questions and you want to know. Obviously, that's the whole point of the presentation, right? Oh, okay, great. And then you just, can we schedule a time for tomorrow? And guide them towards the sales prezzo.
How long does that take?
That I always say 12 months. We typically see results happen.
Right. So again, he's trying to explain his processes, and he's talking about time frames and all sorts of things here. So again, no.
What sooner than that? But to be conservative, we start with a 12-month mindset, and then we kind of go from there. But yeah, my clients definitely see results sooner, but it's very hard to tell given at this stage.
Since you're saying at 12 months, what kind of commitment are you looking for? Like, I know that we didn't talk about a monthly. I know you talked about an hourly, but what kind of monthly what kind of commitment, what kind of numbers are you looking for? What's a yearly commitment, something like that?
So it's $2,500 a month for 12 months. That is 30,000. Mm-hmm. And yeah, our guarantee is at least 3x of that. So if we don't generate you 90K, if we can't prove that in actually give you proof that we generated you 90K, then we refund you. And that's our guarantee that you would have seen on our ads.
Yeah, so that's again, this hole's just getting deeper and deeper because he's now talking about guarantees. And he's actually quoted a number there and said $90,000, which is going to be, it's probably, I would probably phrase it as an offer misalignment, right? In other words, you're speaking with a prospect who's already doing, say, 2.5 million a year or $1.2 million a month or whatever that works out, or $2 million a month. They're not going to be excited by $90,000. Right, you're saying pay me $2,500 a month to make 90 grand. They're going to make 90 grand by Monday afternoon. So Yeah, this is definitely not a conversation that you want to have at this point.
I'm glad you said that, because one of the things that I want to have,
And you're probably wondering, well, what do I say? Well, again, all of this needs to be covered in the presentation. This conversation should have stopped about 10 minutes ago. All of this is covered in the presentation. Abe, do you want to go ahead with the presentation? Right? It's like if they keep pressing you with questions, you say, look, all of this is covered in the presentation. It's as simple as that. And any time where they're talking about returns on investment, I mean, I'm actually falling into this hole that Ben has dug. So again, the conversation should have stopped 10 minutes ago, and it should have been all of this is covered in the presentation. Let's book a time. I'll walk you through it.
said that there's a second meeting that you go over the proposal or the presentation. My CFO is going to be on that meeting. You okay with that?
Yep, fantastic. I actually encourage it. I like to get all those questions out and just answer any questions anyone has, any decision makers have in the company.
All right. So what's the next step?
Cool. So basically, what's a good time for you? It's Friday. So what about Monday? Does Monday morning work?
Monday I got a meeting. Can you do it maybe later today?
Yeah, I could probably do 2 hours. In 2
All right.
hours? Cool.
Okay, so just send me a link for 2 hours and we'll meet up, and then you can go through I'll have my CFO and a couple of the people here. And does this mean I have to change my agency with you, or that can all stay?
So it depends exactly what they're doing. If they're doing SEO.
Right. So he's gone back again. He's revisiting, and this should have been clarified earlier, because this now is going to be a real problem in that he's going to actually host the presentation not knowing exactly what this other agency is doing and how that might interfere with the work that's being requested. Again, it should have gone much deeper on this and asked, what are they doing? Are they going to get in our fucking way? If they are, we're out. Okay, we're not going to be trying to do our job as well as fight with other agencies. I definitely would not be hosting the presentation at this point knowing that there's another agency involved. If they're doing if the only time I would make an exception there is if the client made it very clear to me they're doing PPC, Google Ads or something, but they're pushing to their own landing pages. Okay, brilliant. So that's not going to interfere with anything that we're doing. No, it's not. Okay, I need you to send me those links so I can confirm. And the other thing is what Ben is doing here, agreeing to a shorter time frame. That is, of course, the time between pre-qualifying and the sales presentation is actually a good thing. I think in the training, I've said give yourself 2 days so that you're not pressured for time. But I've found, especially since running ads, I found that by shortening that time frame, it can increase your conversion rates. In other words, not necessarily conversion rates, but it certainly has a positive impact on things like show-up rates and your ability to close, right? So let me give you an example. If you say, okay, meet me next, they're speaking on, in this case, Friday, meet me next Thursday. Next Thursday comes around, that prospect is, forgotten, changed their mind, lost interest, spoke with their brother-in-law who said SEO is a scam. All sorts of problems can happen. So by shortening that time frame, you'll maintain momentum and interest, right? In other words, okay, Friday, I want to speak with you first thing Monday morning. I never booked a call 2 hours later because I was never that keen. Is there anything wrong with doing that? I probably wouldn't recommend it. But if you can do it on the same day, a few hours later, then that's maybe okay, so long as the actual presentation is meaningful, right? Remember, I don't think Ben asked for the URLs of any of the competitors, so I'm not quite sure how he's going to do the gap analysis or anything else. I think with everything that's been said during this pre-qualifying call, I probably wouldn't have worked with this prospect. There are just too many problems. There's another marketing agency. The site got hit with some sort of penalty. the asking about rankings could be a problem, but that could be overcome. I won't say that. I'm not going to say that I wouldn't work with this prospect, but I would certainly be leaning towards this is not a good fit because there are just too many potential obstructions and problems in the way.
I would require, I don't want to be working in hand with another SEO agency. We're just going to step over each other. It's not going to work out well. So the email that I've got on file for you, I'm going to send you a calendar invite, and you can kind of forward that off to whoever else you want on that meeting. So your CFO, and yeah, I'll looking forward to speaking to you in a couple of hours, 2 hours.
All right, just send that over and we'll meet up.
Perfect. Sounds good.
So how was that, Ben?
Okay, so Ben didn't round out the call there. He didn't get the phone number either. You definitely got to get the phone number. Always get the phone number so that if for any reason you're sitting there and you're wondering where are these guys, you can at least text them or call them, right? In the run sheet also, I do say when is the most suitable time. I would probably change that and be more forceful and say, how does next Thursday afternoon sound? Or how does tomorrow at 1 p.m. sound? Okay. Or give them two options. So it's not a yes or no. I can do next Friday at 1 p.m. or Wednesday at 3. Which one do you want? Okay. Definitely don't leave it open-ended. Book a time, just as it reads on the run sheet. Now, the other thing that, as I said, Ben didn't round it out. Okay. Always round it out. So just before we finish it up, this is exactly how I would have said it. Okay, just before we finish up this call, I just want to summarize the next steps so you know what's coming up and what to do next. So the presentation usually takes about 45 minutes to go through. You'll receive an invitation link via email shortly, which will give you a complete summary of when the presentation is on. Ben did say that in a roundabout way, so that's fine. In order to join the call, just click on the link and follow the instructions. It's best to do this on a laptop or a desktop computer because I'll be sharing my screen. Okay, I've had prospects that get on, they're trying to watch it while they're sitting, in the lunchroom, they're trying to watch it on their phone. I'm not interested in working with someone who wants to fuck around like that. So make sure that they're aware that you'll be sharing your screen. And lastly, you're welcome to have other people who might be interested on the call to join in. You should definitely be pushing for, okay, if there are any other decision makers that need to be a part of this, get them on the call. Okay, and that's pretty much it. So these guys have finished the pre-quali call. I'm going to stop this video right now and I'll upload it so that everyone can watch it back. I would encourage all of you to watch this video all the way through. I think there's a lot to be learned here. There were definitely some problems. There's definitely some problems here that need to be fixed. But look, you might be thinking, and maybe, and I'll just apologize in advance to Ben. Maybe he didn't follow his usual routine, given this was a mock call. If that's the case, Ben, apologies. However, for the sake of this demonstration and so that others can learn, I need to point out all of the things that were done incorrectly and can certainly be improved upon. Hey, if you've enjoyed this video and you'd like to learn more, head over to bringtheseo.com. We provide business development training for SEO consultants wanting to improve their processes, increase profits, and scale to $100,000 a month or more without all the stress and overwhelm.